unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
What is up, everybody? This is Hater Radio. My name is Chris McLean. I'm here with my co-host, Ian Gibson. How are you, Ian?
I'm doing really good, coming back from the nicest funeral I've ever been to with that Texas-Florida game.
I mean, you picked a very poignant game to attend, but I luckily backed out of that, so I'm grateful that I didn't have to go and witness that. But we'll get into your thoughts. Actually, let's do it now because we already did the recap the other day. So let's give me some of your insight of what you saw there and what was going on at that game.
So, first of all, I'm as bad as the score was, it is exactly how I expected that game to go because you're down to your second and third strings. The team is bad. There was no starters pretty much. And when you have that and you're playing Texas, who's off a bye week and healthy and coming off a loss to Georgia, and it's in Austin, yeah, that went the way you would exactly expect it to be. It was the equivalent of when you're playing NCAA and you're playing like a C- school. That's exactly what happened. Florida was just like outmanned, outcoached, out everything. They in Texas just clearly showed they were the better team. I don't like. I know I give Napier a lot of flack, and honestly, rightfully so. I can't give a bit to him on that one. It's hard to like game plan when you're on your third string quarterback who is a preferred walk-on from an Ivy League school, and his first start is, "Hey, you're in the heart of Texas. Good luck." So, I mean, yeah, they played as bad as I expected them to play. I will give credit. Jaden Baugh actually had a solid game for what it's worth. He was definitely
the Jackson.
And Jackson. It was the one bright spot. Yeah, I mean, all in all, Texas took care of business, got the job done. They really showed that they are still, as good. Because I said the one chance Florida had is if Texas, slept on this game, and they didn't. They clearly have the focus to keep going and try to either sneak back into the SEC championship or, be a lock for the playoff. Excuse me. But all in all, great win for Texas. Another terrible loss for Florida and a really rough week that it was. No more to say. I will say the atmosphere and all that, the crowd was absolutely fantastic. That was one of the nicest stadiums I have ever been to. I do want to personally thank my uncle, Uncle Kurt, who invited me, and more specifically, my aunt's cousin, who is actually head of sports and science at Texas, who was able to get the tickets, and we were actually able to go onto the field and see, DKR for itself. All in all, great place. Obviously, college football town. It was a fantastic place to go to. I just wish it wasn't at the expense of murdering a bunch of reptiles. Anywho, all in all, would love to go back, just not if they're playing Florida.
I was going to ask you, what did you think of the town itself? Did you get to go to 4th Street and experience some of the live music?
We were unable to. We didn't have the time for that. We did get to experience a lot of the food. We went to a lot of the barbecue places and steakhouses. Absolutely incredible. That's one thing I know from Texas. My soon-to-be wife is from the Dallas area, and anytime we go to Texas, they have amazing barbecue, and Austin was absolutely no exception. Fantastic food. That was definitely the highlight of the trip, besides the game. It is honestly a fantastic town. And you can tell how dedicated they are to the Texas University, with the football team and even the basketball team. We went to a basketball game there, and that facility was insane. That was the nicest basketball arena I've ever been to. Overall, just a fantastic. I highly recommend, if anybody's doing a trip to Texas, Austin would absolutely be a place you want to go. Great food, great city, a lot of history there. I highly recommend if you're traveling. I really hope for the Gator fans that did go, they were able to experience some of the other, great things that Austin had. So they didn't just have to go with an awful loss on the way back to Florida. But Yeah, absolutely great time. Like I said, I would love to go back for another game. If they're playing, like if they played, if when they play A&M, I would love to go back to that game.
Well, they'll play A&M. Well, I
Right.
don't know what the schedule is going to set up. They play A&M not next year, but the year after, and I don't know if that's a home or away. But yeah, I did the same thing. I went to the A&M game when Anthony Richardson was starting, and I flew into Austin, stayed there for a couple of days, and then drove over to College Station, and it was great. I had a blast. Like I love live music, and that was probably my favorite part of that trip was being able to go to a lot of the bars and listen to live music because they have a lot of really good bands. These are probably guys and gals that could make it, but it's a weird industry right now for music where it's not as open to like seeing new acts as much. So like there's still these amazing talents that could probably be potentially something, but you're seeing them in person for like nothing. Most of the time, you didn't even have to pay a cover to get into some of these bars, and you could watch amazing talent. And I did the same thing in Nashville, watched a bunch of live music as well. It's great for that. But yeah, no, I'm glad you had a good time. I know the game was not what we all would have wanted. Again, I think if DJ Lagway is healthy in that game, it's a lot closer, and maybe even in like a 10-point game, maybe a 7-point game, and maybe, it's more interesting. But, Warner really doesn't give Florida a chance to really do much at all. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. But let's jump into while we're here, week 12, the preview show. So we're going to talk about these games. The first game we have is on Friday. Friday is UCLA Washington. UCLA again on another Friday game. They've gotten a lot of these lately. But both these teams are not having the best seasons right now. They're kind of struggling. UCLA, though, is on a hot streak, winning 3 of their last games, and looking a lot better, especially offensively, while Washington just got blasted by Penn State, which is not a terrible way to lose because Penn State is one of the better teams in the country. So I don't know. This UW team, I'm not expecting much out of them considering they've been kind of like run through the rigmarole here, and they've been battered and bruised. This UCLA team seems to have something to play for. They have the potential of getting a bowl game, and I think that really is like elevated their play. Garbers has looked good at times, still struggled a little bit here and there, but I expect him to have probably a decent game. I think they score anywhere from like 24 to 27 points for UCLA. Washington, on the other hand, I don't know. Rogers has been kind of hit or miss. Again, Penn State has a really good defense, so it looked a lot worse than it probably was. They've had some games where they've had some decent outputs offensively, but I expect UCLA's defense to come to play in this one. I expect UCLA to probably win this one. I'm going to say UCLA wins 27-20. What do you got, Ian?
So you're definitely right. I feel like UCLA is on a hot streak right now, and they are now in the category where they can score more than 20 points consistently, which was really hard to say at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
What I think what's going to come down to is how the defenses play with each other. And this is what it's going to really boil down to. We know UCLA does have a good defense, but it is worth noting that Washington has been averaging over 400 yards a game, and it has been hit and miss. But we know how good Will Rogers is, and we know how good the passing offense can be when it is clicking. So one crux is going to be how well UCLA can defend the pass and force the run, because their run defense is fantastic, but their pass defense has been very spotty. Meanwhile, Washington has actually a top 25 defense, and this is really going to be a big test for UCLA to see how well this hot streak goes. I feel like, though, they really impressed me with that win over Iowa, because that was a very tough team in the defense, and they got a very gritty win. But I feel like with Washington, they have the offense to complement a defense like that. I feel like if Washington, it puts in the mindset, you score more than 27 points, you got this. And I think the Huskies can do that. I think it keeps it close, but I'm going to take Huskies winning. I'm going to go with a 30-24 win for the Huskies. I think it'll be a close one.
Okay. Next game we've got is Texas, Arkansas. Arkansas QB Talon Green is set to come back. I think he gives them the best chance to beat Texas. If he's not in there, they're quite average, maybe even below average. But I feel like Arkansas with Talon Green is more of a threat in both the run and the pass. And he's a good quarterback. I've liked him all year. I think if he has been healthy all year, they may have had a few less losses. They should have beat that Oklahoma State team earlier in the year. That was kind of like a ridiculous loss. But, they did get the win against Tennessee. I don't think they're going to win here. This game is an old rivalry that went dormant for many years. So it's interesting to see this come back. I think Arkansas is good enough to hold Texas to 28 points. But I think Arkansas is going to struggle to score enough points to be able to threaten Texas here. So I'm going to say Texas wins 28-20. What do you got, Ian?
I think Texas with this game, because Arkansas's defense in the SEC is actually third worst in the conference. The only team they're ahead of is Florida and Mississippi State. And I just saw what Texas did to that Florida defense. As battered as they are, that is pretty much a defense that Texas knows how to beat. And I feel like Texas is going to have their way. I do think for Arkansas to win this, it's going to have to be an old Southwest Conference shootout. You're going to have to score as many points as you possibly can. But I feel like that defense with Texas is really up to the challenge. Now, the thing is, Texas's defense hasn't been tested with a quarterback like Green before, so that is something Arkansas could have their advantage. But I just don't see them keeping up with that offense or the defense being able to get that many stops on them. So I'm going to go Longhorns winning. I'm going to go with a 38-20 victory for Texas.
Okay, let's move on to Utah, Colorado. Now, Colorado is second in the standings for the Big 12, so these next couple of games are huge for them, and especially some of the exterior games like the Kansas State games, Arizona State, and Iowa State. So they have to keep winning, and they have to hope that some of these other teams lose. So I think because Utah's defense is good enough to keep them in this game, I think it'll be closer than what Colorado expects. The problem is Utah's offense is so bad, both off passing and running, that I don't know what to expect from them, especially coming off a last-second loss to BYU. Are they going to be just reeling from that? They do play the pass really well defensively, and they should be able to thwart Colorado a bit. Colorado is really good in the turnover margin, and Utah is not. So that may play an issue here in this game as well. Colorado doesn't really run the ball as well, which that could be an issue. But again, I feel like Utah will keep them in the game. Their defense will keep them in the game, but then Colorado may just score enough to win. I'm going to say it's going to be like a 27-17 game. What do you got, Ian?
So with Colorado's wins, they have first of all, it is definitely admirable for what they've done. We thought that we were leaving them dead in the water after the Nebraska game, and they've been almost beat Kansas State, blew out UCF, and they've been reeling off wins, and now they're bowl eligible.
Yeah.
And then they're really in the driver's seat for the Big 12 title. So they really they're their own worst enemy if it comes down to it.
Potentially playoff team.
Potentially, exactly.
Which I don't think anyone would have believed after last year when they were 4-8. I mean, there was a lot of media saying that stuff, but it was like, oh yeah, whatever. But now it legitimately it is possible.
You're exactly right. I do want to note though, out of the teams Colorado has beaten in the past like 5 games, they lost to Kansas State, which was a close one, a 31-28. But the week before they beat UCF, and their last 3 wins have been to Arizona, Cincinnati, and Texas Tech. Texas Tech has the second worst defense in the Big 12. Arizona has the third worst defense in the Big 12, and Cincy has the 5th worst defense in the Big 12. Utah has the number 1 defense in the entire conference. This is going to be the biggest test for Colorado this year. I'm sorry. I know they got games ahead, but this is the biggest test. This is going to prove how legitimate they are. I feel like, though, if with Utah, they can keep Colorado within the 20-point range, but I don't see Utah scoring that much because the offense is just really spiraling. Now, they've been playing really close games. You know, it was a close game against Arizona State, TCU, Houston, BYU, obviously the BYU game with all the controversy that comes with the Holy War. But for me, I feel like Colorado has got enough playmakers that they can get a late score and win it close. I just don't see Utah having that in them. I feel like they're in Boulder. They'll do a good job in, feeding off the crowd. I'm going to go Colorado winning a close one. I'm going to go with a 27-20 win for the Buffs.
Okay. Next game we have is Clemson, Pittsburgh, or Pitt. Should have just said that. I don't know why I said Pittsburgh. So Clemson, coming in with one of the better offenses in the country. I don't think people realize how good that this offense is, both on the run and the pass. And, despite those 2 almost clunkers against Georgia and Louisville, Clemson offense looks amazing. And it's like, if they didn't have those 2 games, their numbers would be even higher. That's how crazy that those 2 outliers pull their numbers down. And they're like top 20 in most of the stats. And, the defense is decent as well. And I think that honestly might be what wins this game here, because their defense is pretty solid. Pittsburgh offensively has been struggling lately. The quarterback situation, I'm not a big fan of. They're not really like, after these 2 losses they suffered, I don't know. They're able somewhat to pass the ball, but their run game is not very good. And also some of the passing numbers that they stacked up against are against pretty bad teams. So, their numbers don't look that great. If you look at it in context, this is a game that if Clemson wins, I'm almost positive. I didn't see it anywhere out there, but I'm almost positive, because if Clemson wins, they lock up a berth in Charlotte for the ACC championship game, because they have no more ACC games after this.
Yeah, they play Citadel and then South Carolina. So this is the end of their conference.
So if they win this game, I'm almost 100% certain that they go to Charlotte. So regardless of what SMU and Miami do. So this is totally in their hands. They have everything to play for. If they get to the ACC championship game and then they do win it, they would potentially get a first round bye into, the playoffs. And it's like, dude, with this offense, they're good enough to beat most teams. I know they struggled against Georgia in that first game, but I think what I've seen through them throughout the rest of the year, I like the way that things are going for them. If they can continue this trend and if they look good against Pitt, then I would have faith that they could win the ACC championship game. And who knows, once you get in the tournament, anything is possible. So, it's also, this Clemson, it seems like the Clemsoning that used to exist 15 years ago is now resurfaced again, where it was, 7-8 years ago, it kind of went away because Clemson was winning and they won national championships and were in the playoffs and fighting for national titles. But now that is almost non-existent. And, I don't know. I mean, I think I've come around on Cade Klubnik. I was not sold on him last year, but now I feel like he's gotten better. And I think that has been the difference in this offense. Maffa obviously is as good as he is. He'll be solid and he contributes at least 100 to like 120 yards a game. But it really is Cade Klubnik who's been able to distribute the ball and to be an effective, signal caller. And I think that's the difference in this Clemson team. But Ian, your thoughts?
Yeah, I feel like with Clemson, the offense has been really clicking, and it wasn't the most impressive win. I mean, it was a 24-14 win over Vatech. But I just don't see Pitt with the offense they have had. I mean, they lost to Virginia, which was not good, and they got blown out by SMU. They have been averaging around the 20-point margin, and it's not, anything to sneeze at. But another thing to note is that Clemson, they've still been, have a top 5 defense in the conference right now. So they've been showing up when it matters. I don't see Pitt, I just don't see them scoring enough. It is in Pittsburgh. It'll be at Heinz Field. So might be tough, but I feel like Clemson, if they, again, similar to Colorado, if they just do not get in their own way, because we have seen Clemson be their own worst enemy with turnovers and penalties. If they just play a clean game, I think they got this, and I think they will. I'm going to go Tigers winning. I'm going to go with a 30-14 win for Clemson.
And I didn't give my prediction either, but yeah, I feel like Clemson should win probably, I'm going to say like 32 to like 17. Okay, let's move on to Tulane Navy. Now, this Tulane team, left for dead after those first 2 losses to Kansas State and Oklahoma, but they've pretty much obliterated everyone since that point. They're really good on defense on both in both phases of the game. Offense is primarily more run orientated, and they are effective through the air. Their turnover margin is pretty healthy, so that's good. So they're effective there. And I think that may come into play if turnover margin with Navy, because Navy does turn the ball over a bit. And I think that may be a problem for Navy in this game. Their defense is also opportunistic, but I like Tulane to be able to make chances here. In that USF game, Navy had a ton of explosive plays, and I don't think that's going to happen in this game. I think Tulane is going to be more sound and be more effective in keeping it in front of them. And if that's the case, then Tulane should win this one. This is a potential spot in the ACC championship game on the line as well, because both of these teams are right there. It's Memphis, Tulane, Navy, and Army, all 4 really right there at the end. So, and they're all kind of playing each other because Memphis and Tulane play each other, Army and Navy play each other. So there's a lot going on in the next couple of weeks for the AAC. I like Tulane in this one. I know Navy's had a good season so far, but I like Tulane to win. I'm going to say like 31 to like probably 22. What do you got, Ian?
Yeah, for me, with the exception of the Tennessee-Georgia game, this is no joke my game of the week, because You're right. Whoever wins this is, almost all but a lock for the American championship. And both teams have, had incredible seasons. And Tulane has just been a team like with a vendetta. They scored 70 on UAB, and they won a shootout against North Texas, blew out Charlotte, blew out Temple. They've been beating the teams convincingly that they are supposed to. Navy, they had the back-to-back losses from Notre Dame and Rice. Now they get a good one against USF. This is what it's going to come down to. Now, it's going to be like we always say, how well can you defend the run of Navy? Navy with the option attack and the, just straight up run game is going to really make or break Tulane still has a top 25 defense. I think they're 16th in the country right now on defense. And Tulane, I think, is second in the AAC in total defense. So I feel like with Tulane, they'll be able enough to mitigate the run to where Navy can't play their game. So where they're trying to play keep away, where they're trying to, make sure Tulane doesn't have the ball, because Tulane still has a really good offense, second best offense in the American Conference. And we've seen what the scoreboard says. I think this is, if Tulane can get in the backfield and not play a Navy type game, Tulane's got this. And I think they will. It is in Annapolis, so they got to go north. It's going to be cold. And the stigma of southern teams playing in cold weather, but I think Tulane gets it done. It's going to be a really gritty win, but I think the Green Wave win and head back to the AAC championship. I'm going to go Tulane winning with a 28-20 win.
Well, they still would have the Memphis game, so it's not a guarantee that they get to the AAC if they even win this game. But it is like the next 2 weeks, we're going to figure out.
They'd be in the driver's seat.
Yeah, they would be pretty assured of it. Okay, moving on to Virginia, Notre Dame. This is a sneaky game because Notre Dame has a really big matchup next week against Army, which I'm really excited for. I hope we can see that Notre Dame wins this, because I want to see that undefeated Army against a one-loss Notre Dame. I don't think that's been a thing since the 40s. So that would be a huge matchup. But Virginia has a decent offense, better passing team than they are at rushing. Their defense is below average. Notre Dame, they look really good on both sides of the ball. One of the better defenses in the country. They're good at both stopping the run and the pass. Plus, they force a lot of turnovers, and the offense has been really good. They have a high completion percentage. They don't give the ball away too much. It really only stands out to this Notre Dame team because they lost to Northern Illinois, and it still looks bad because Northern Illinois lost to Ball State, Buffalo, Toledo, and NC State, who's looked terrible the rest of the year. So it's that doesn't look good for Notre Dame. But the rest of the games that they've played, they beat A&M, which has been a top 15 team almost all year. They beat what's the other one? Georgia Tech, which that's not a bad, not a terrible terrible win, because it was King didn't play, but still Georgia Tech's defense is really good, so they've been there for that. And then plus Tech just beat Miami too, so that looks really good. But this, and Notre Dame also beat Louisville, right? And so that right there, that's 3 pretty solid wins that a lot of teams don't really have. So they'll get the Army game as well, and then USC is going to be a rivalry game that who knows what happens. But this game is a sneaky game because Virginia could come in here as a trap game and get one on Notre Dame. I don't think that's going to happen, but it is a possibility. So Notre Dame needs to be ready for it. I think Notre Dame is going to win. I'm going to say Notre Dame wins probably 34-20. What do you got, Ian?
Yeah, Virginia definitely, they had the big win last week with Pitt. They won 24-19 in that one. But Notre Dame's been on a roll, and the defense has really come out, and that run game has been an absolute machine. Yeah. And I just don't see the Cavaliers putting a monkey wrench into that. So I'm going to go with the Irish winning and keep it rolling. I'm going to go with let's go 35-14 Notre Dame.
Okay, next game we have is Boston College SMU. So Castellanos, the quarterback for BC, looks like he's transferring, so I don't think he's playing. And their backup, I'm not too keen on. So I think Castellanos gave them the best chance of being competitive in this game. SMU with Jennings has been very effective. They on defense as well. They've been keeping opposing completion percentages low. They're average at the turnover margin, and they have a high yards pass per game, even though they run the ball very, very much. So, like this SMU team is effective in both the run and the pass, even though they don't even throw the ball that much. And so that honestly, um, I believe that SMU should be able to win this handedly. I think they're just an overmatched team. BC is overmatched here, and I think that SMU, has the talent on with their running backs, with their wide receivers to make a good enough amount of plays and defensively to hold them in check. So I'm going to say SMU wins like 38 to like 17. What do you got, Ian?
Yeah, with the news of Castellanos going in now, it's going to likely be Grayson James stepping in. It's not good look for BC coming into this one. And like you said, SMU's balanced attack, as good as they are on the run, when they need to pass, they absolutely kill it. I just don't see, BC getting enough points on SMU. It's in Dallas. I don't think it'll be good. I know they had a, gutty win against Syracuse, but I think after, SMU put 48 on Pitt, I think they're, rolling here. I'm going to go Mustangs winning. I'll go 37-17.
Nice. Okay. So in comes this huge game for Billy Napier. There's 3 games left. They have a real possibility of getting to a bowl game. The FSU game they should win. Not that they will, but there's a good possibility that they should. They're going to be favored. FSU at most will have 2 wins coming into that game, and so that means that they need to win one of the next 2 games to get to bowl eligibility. So they need to beat either LSU or Ole Miss. I feel like this game gives them the best opportunity to get to the potential of bowl eligibility. Now, DJ Lagway was hurt last week. He was hurt in the Georgia game, didn't play last week. He was warming up, looked like he may, but he didn't end up playing. And Warner came in and played, and he's just not very good. He's, a preferred walk-on from Yale. I don't know why they're not playing the other kid, the kid from Colorado State. But I feel like if DJ plays, which as of today, I saw that in his SEC phone call with everybody that he said that DJ is progressing. So he didn't give a thumbs up to yes that he's playing, but it seems likely because he's practicing more and more, which is a good sign. Even a limited DJ Lagway is, 99% better than a fully healthy Warner, which no offense to the kid, it's just the reality. DJ is, uber talented, and, his future is super bright. And that's just the reality of the situation. And, in this game, though, LSU, their defense is like a below average defense. And, they're passing the ball a ton, 61.16% of the time, and they're very good at it. They're one of the best passing attacks in the country. They have a below average turnover margin. So, LSU, if you can hold the passing game in check, but the problem is Florida is coming into this game with injuries to both Devin Moore and Jason Marshall being out for the rest of the year. So Kermani McLean and I can't remember the guy that's the other starter, but those 2 starting cornerbacks are not who Florida normally has starting. So that's going to be an issue there in the passing attack. I feel like if DJ's in the game and if he is able to hit the long ball, which, is going to be the biggest aspect of Florida's game, which I think LSU is gettable in that case, then Florida can keep in this game. I think it's going to be a struggle on defense without their starting corners. I think they're going to probably give up at least 25 to 32 points. and DJ would have to put up a ton of points against them to really be effective. And I don't know if that's the case. I think LSU wins like 31 to like 24. What do you got, Ian?
Yeah, because here's the thing. If it has been a big game and or a rivalry game like LSU, that's just not in Billy Napier's MO. He has one win in rivalry games. And when I consider the traditional rivals are Florida State, Georgia, and Tennessee, and if you want to add LSU in there, be my guest, he hasn't beaten them either. And the one thing that there was hope is that if Lagway is healthy, if Lagway is in this game, it's going to give Florida their best chance. But we have seen LSU really struggle. I said this before they played Bama. They have really struggled stopping mobile quarterbacks. And DJ, as great as his arm as he has, he can still move out of the pocket. Maybe not like elite speed like Milroe, but he's still mobile. But with that hamstring injury, no matter what it is, I don't think that part of his body is going to be 100% to where he can like explode out of the pocket. So then it's going to rely on his arm. And I feel like LSU's better prepared against that. They may burn him a few times on the deep ball, but I don't see them jumping on him like they did against Kentucky or when they were playing Samford. I don't see that happening. And with the backup corners in terms of athletes, LSU has really athletic wide receivers, and we saw those corners and safeties get exposed against Texas. And now you got to do that again against LSU. I just don't see Florida keeping up. I'm going to go Tigers winning this one. I'm going to go 30-20 LSU.
Yeah, and it's tough because now it's what, a streak of 5 losses against LSU, and
2018 was the last time they beat LSU, and that was in the swamp.
Yeah, and it's like, I don't know. I think
old Gator fans, this is what LSU went through with us in the 90s. Like they couldn't beat us for nothing. Right. And now we're in their shoes.
Yeah, we're getting that karma. But it's been honestly since like 2010, like that we haven't been able to beat LSU. There's been like 3 or 4 games that Florida's won in like the last 15 years against LSU, and it's been rough. It's been really, I don't know. Even when LSU is down, LSU somehow manages to beat Florida, like regardless of how their team is doing. They still somewhat like the shoe game, the certain years with Ed Orgeron when they were like not very good before they won the national championship. And it's seemingly it's kind of ridiculous. And now Brian Kelly seems to have Napier's numbers. So, whatever. I hope they can win because I would like to see them get to a bowl game, because if they get to a bowl game, that means more practice for DJ Lagway, and that gets him ready for next year. So I'm hoping for that. That's literally the only thing that I'm hoping out of the next 3 weeks is that we get more practice for DJ so that he's ready for next year. That's the only hope I'm having for the rest of this year. Okay. Next game we have is USF Charlotte. I tweeted Joey Knight from Tampa Bay Times, who covers USF. He also covers Florida as well. But he said that he did not hear Alex Golish mention Byron Brown in his teleconference. And so that means likely that if he's not even talking about him, he's probably not going to play. Now, he was at practice the other day. There was a photo of him on Instagram on the football's account, the USF football account, but doesn't mean he's going to play. So more than likely, it's Bryce Archie again. He is capable. They struggled against Navy. They were moving the ball, but they were not finishing drives. There was a lot of turnovers. They should be able to move the ball on this team. Charlotte is not good at almost any aspect of football. They are better though against the pass, so expect USF to run the ball a ton. But the funny thing is, this Charlotte team did have a lead against Memphis not that long ago, and it was late. It was like a minute or two left in the game. So this team is not complete dog crap, but it is not very good in a lot of aspects. I expect, I know it's in North Carolina, in Charlotte, so it'll be a tougher game because of that. But they don't have a crowd, so like there's going to be no one at this game, so it's not like it's going to be that big of an advantage for Charlotte. I expect USF to play pretty well in this game. These are the last couple of weeks here. They've got Rice after that as well, and they've got um, what's the other one? Rice, Charlotte, and
Tulsa.
And so they have to win out these games. They're 4-5 at this point, which is funny because all the teams that we cover are 4-5, which, I definitely wouldn't have thought about that about USF, wouldn't have thought about that about USC, but UCLA actually looks kind of good now at 4-5. And Florida, who knows? We'll see what happens with them. But interesting that all four are 4-5. But no, I think USF can win this game. I think if they run the ball, they'll be able to eat up yards and get first downs that way. And I think if that's the case, and maybe some explosives here and there in the passing attack, probably not much because again, Charlotte is effective in the pass defense. So I'm going to say USF wins like 28-24. What do you got, Ian?
So I think, at least for me and other USF fans, the season has definitely not been what they wanted. We were kind of expecting like that big jump to maybe be like an AAC contender, and it really hasn't happened with or without the injury of Byron Brown. They did have a really tough schedule, and this is what we were expecting, kind of the back end of it, that it would lighten up. That loss to Navy was tough. But the one thing you can say, at least if you're Alex Golich now, is that you're in like games that you're expected to win now, and you need to win now because you have 3 games in the road. If you want to help your case, if they do what they're supposed to, Charlotte, Tulsa, and Rice are all very winnable games for USF. If you win those 3, you add another win. You had one more win than you did last year. That at least shows that, like, hey, when we get the games we're supposed to, we can win those. It's something to build off of. So when you're going into this game, you cannot be sleeping in this one. And I feel like they know the message here that, they still want to go to a bowl game. They still want to finish strong. And I think they can. Charlotte has really been, especially on offense, they have the second worst offense in the AAC, although they put like 55 on ECU and they were hanging with Memphis. So I don't know. But I feel like this game is going to play out kind of similar to FAU game. If that run game is, rolling through, and I think it can, because, that's one of Charlotte's strengths has been the pass defense. If that run game is working, it's not going to matter. Play keep away, and I think USF can ice it. I'm going to go USF winning. I'm going to go with a 28-17 win for the Bulls.
Okay, let's move on to Nebraska USC. I'm probably not going to go to this game just because I want to watch a lot of other games. I mean, no offense to my USC friends, but I just I feel like there's more games to watch on Saturday. There's a lot going on, and I kind of want to watch those. Now, I might go to the USC, either the USC Notre Dame game or the USC UCLA game, which I think I probably will go to the USC UCLA game. But let's talk about this. So Nebraska's defense overall is pretty good. They're better against the run than the pass. Their offense is below average. USC, I think they should be able to contain them. Raiola is prone to mistakes. And also for USC on the offensive side of the ball, Jaden Mayava, I don't know how to say it, but that may be right, replaces Miller Moss at QB. It should give a boost to the offense. He's more of a run threat than Moss. It may elevate the game of other guys around him because now they have to be the defenses have to respect the threat of the run by the quarterback now, especially on the RPO. So if that's the case, it kind of opens up a lot of things for the offense that wasn't necessarily the case with Miller Moss because he's less of a runner. The defense has been solid all year for USC. I expect that to continue in this game. I expect them to have a really good game in this one. I expect, probably 34 points. I'm going to say USC wins 34 to like 24. What do you got, Ian?
Yeah, for me in this one, this is definitely a toss-up because both teams need a win in the worst way. USC only won one game in October, and it was towards the end, and they started November with a loss to Seattle. And
Washington.
Nebraska, Seattle, Washington, yeah. And Nebraska's lost 3 in a row in a very winnable game against UCLA. They dropped. So these teams need it bad. They need to win bad. I feel like in this one, just Nebraska's offense has really just not impressed me the last couple weeks. Their last win was only a 14-7 win against Rutgers. And as much as USC's defense, has been looked at as malign, I feel like they got enough to stop a team like Nebraska with an offense like that. I'm going to go USC winning. I think they just have more weapons on offense. So I'm going to go Trojans winning. I'm going to go with let's go 28-14 win for the Trojans. Also, shout out to them finally doing a throwback to the 1970s John McKay uniforms this week.
Oh, yeah. And then, shout out to, rest in peace to their former coach, Robinson.
Yeah.
Passed away the other day. Guy was a giant. I heard how many All-Americans he had at USC while he was there, and I was blown away. I think it was 20 something, 24 or something. I was like, wow, that's remarkable. Okay. Let's move on to Missouri, South Carolina. Now both these teams are ranked. But again, I felt like Missouri has been a fraud all year. They barely survived Oklahoma last week. I think this South Carolina team is for real. They should have beat LSU earlier in the season. And if they had, they would be on the verge of a playoff spot because they'd have a Clemson matchup that really could showcase their worth. And it's a shame that they didn't win that game because it was really close and they were, looked like they were the better team in that game and somehow they lost it. But yeah, I like South Carolina a lot. I like Sellers. I like their defense. Their D-line is phenomenal. They make a lot of they force a lot of pressure and they get a lot of sacks. I don't think Missouri really is that good. I think we've all seen that all year long. They got smoked by Texas A&M. They got smoked by Alabama. They're just not a good team, and they've just had an easy schedule to really inflate their record. So I'm going to say South Carolina wins this. I'm going to say it's going to be probably a 30-22 game. What do you got, Ian?
Yeah, I agree. South Carolina, the difference between these two teams is that South Carolina has been in these big games, and either they've answered the bell or they came pretty close to it. They were in a fight with Alabama. They almost won against LSU, and they beat A&M, and they really stuffed it to Vandy last week in Nashville.
Yeah.
And with Missouri, it's kind of the other hand. They do have wins, but, they barely beat Auburn. Oklahoma game, they had to do the strip sack on Jackson Arnold to win it. They got shut out by Bama, and they got blown out by A&M. There's definitely a disparity between the two. I feel like it's in Columbia. That place, ask, Texas A&M how easy of a game that is.
You got to clarify, though, because both of these teams play in Columbia. You got to say Columbia,
South Carolina. God, man, what a but I feel like, Missouri is going in with a 5-game win streak on South Carolina, but I feel like South Carolina gets it done and they'll be able to run it up on them. I'm going to go with South Carolina of Columbia winning that one. I'll go with a 34-20 win for the Gamecocks.
Nice. Okay. Real quick, Boise State, San Jose State. Does Genty go off in this game?
I honestly think he does, because this is a thing now that we're seeing is no matter what you do, Boise State's going to run on you. and they still can't stop them. We saw that last week with Boise State when they were playing Nevada, and that game was actually close, and they still ran it through his face.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go Boise State. Now they did have San Jose State had a good one against Oregon State last week, but I don't think they're gonna keep up there. I'm gonna go Boise State winning. I think they'll wear them out in the second half. I'll go Broncos 31-17.
Okay. Now this is my game of the week outside of the Tennessee Georgia game, but Arizona State going up against Kansas State, two lost teams. There's a ton on the line here. Both of them fighting to play for a Big 12 championship game berth. I've liked Kansas State all year. We've talked about them. We feel like they're a really solid team. They're a very effective in the ground game, less so in the passing attack, but still, I think it's more of a complementary thing with their passing attack, which makes them a very effective offense that way. Arizona State, really good ground game offensively. They're good at holding onto the ball. I don't know. This is going to be an interesting game. I think this could be either way. This is like a coin flip game, like we always say. I feel like because it's in Manhattan, Kansas, I feel like Kansas State should win this game. This is an important game. Kansas State has a bunch of really big ones to end the year. I feel like this is just the warm-up act that they need, and I think they can get the win. I think it's going to be really close. I'm going to say like a 31-28 game, and maybe Kansas State has some late game magic again, like in the last couple of weeks. Not like, again, that Houston game, but, in the other games that they've played. But your thoughts, Ian?
Yeah, K-State was kind of riding the lightning. They barely beat Kansas, and then they lost a tough one to Houston. And Arizona State, same. They, had to come back against UCF. I think, though, like you said, it's in Manhattan, and I think with Avery Johnson, and here's the thing. The offense of Arizona State runs through Scatabo on that rushing attack. But I feel like K-State can limit that enough because they've done a good job limiting the offensive attack on these really, solid run games. So I think Kansas State can do that again. I'm going to go Wildcats winning in a close one. I'll go with a 35-31 win, maybe like a late score to win it for K-State.
Yeah, and K-State, I don't know what it is. It seems like one of those games where it might be who has the ball last, because if they're both running the ball very effectively, the game's going to go by quickly. And so, it's going to be one of those things where also you're going to have to be efficient with your scoring and efficient with your drives, because if you're not scoring on these drives, that's when, one of these teams might take advantage of it. But I still think it's going to be who has the ball last wins. Okay, moving on to Oregon, Wisconsin. I feel like this Oregon team is the most complete team in the country. I feel like they should easily handle this Wisconsin team. Wisconsin is coming off being just shellacked by Iowa and a hard-fought loss against Penn State before that. I feel like Wisconsin is kind of reeling a little bit, while Oregon is obviously undefeated and looking to further things. They're definitely looking to cement a spot in the Big Ten championship game and then cement themselves in the playoff, which I think at this point, regardless of how the season ends, Oregon more than likely is firmly in a playoff spot. I think the percentage is pretty ridiculously high. So I feel like Oregon's going to win this one. I'm going to say 34-17. What do you got, Ian?
Yeah, I think Oregon's definitely the most complete team in the country right now. And I mean, it is in, Camp Randall, it's in Madison, but I don't see Wisconsin. They got blown out by Iowa, which was surprising. And they, took a bad loss to Penn State. The offense, when they're playing, kind of against weaker defenses, can keep up. They put 50 on Purdue and 42 on Rutgers, but I feel like Oregon's got this one in hand. They're just too good, in my opinion. So I'm going to go Ducks winning. I'll go with 38 to 14 win for Oregon.
Okay, so our big matchup now is the Tennessee-Georgia game. You know, both these teams vying to get in the playoff, and Tennessee has a really good shot at getting into the SEC championship game, depending on the outcome of this game. Nico, the quarterback for Tennessee, he's in the concussion protocol. It doesn't look like he's going to play. And if he doesn't play, I don't really like their chances because I don't like their backup a ton. But UGA is kind of reeling right now. They looked bad against Ole Miss. They were, had a up and down game against Bama. They struggled against Texas offensively and against Kentucky. Lucky to win the game against Kentucky. They're not running the ball that well. They're 104th in the country. The Vols defense is really good, but even if Nico is in there or not, they run the ball extremely well. And I think with Nico, though, even if he is in there, he struggles to complete those long balls. And I think that's why their passing attack has been somewhat suspect. And which, UGA's pass defense, there are some question marks there. So maybe Tennessee might be able to throw the ball on them. I feel like it's going to be more of a run game by Tennessee with Sampson, and I think they're going to be able to control the clock. I think that Beck is probably going to make some turnovers, which he's done all year long, and I don't think that's going to change this game. The game is in Athens, so I believe Georgia's got an advantage there. There's going to be a lot of hype around this game. If Georgia loses, they're basically done for the year as far as playoff hopes. So this would be a huge blow to them. I feel like Tennessee, if Nico is there, they can win, but I don't think he's going to be there. So I think Georgia's going to win this one. I think it's going to be close. I'm going to say like a 28 to 20 game. What do you got, Ian?
Depending on what Heifel said, he said, now they did say he was Amavalia was ready to go. Take that for what you will. But if he's in that game, I think that does add another layer for Tennessee because he is definitely a solid quarterback for Tennessee to work with. And comparatively speaking, Georgia's offense is just not what's good. The run game has been the only bright spot. But other than that, he hasn't with, Carson Beck. It's not like it was with Stetson Bennett, these system QBs where they were able to take advantage of the play action pass. It really hasn't been there. And Tennessee still has the second best defense, surprisingly, in the SEC. So, and the only other thing to note, the last time Tennessee has won a game has been against Georgia was that Hail Mary game in Athens in 2016 with Joshua Dobbs. So it's been 7 straight wins for Georgia. They haven't won in Athens since. But I think they get it. If Amavalia is playing, I think they get it done. I just don't see Georgia with that offense keeping up. And I think the defense will force enough turnovers. I'm going to go with the Vols winning. I'll go with a 28 to 23 win for Tennessee.
Okay. Let's go through these two real quick. Cincinnati, Iowa State. Can Iowa State rebound? I don't think they will. I think they had been winning close games, the UCF game, and now they're losing them. They lost to Texas Tech, lost to Kansas where they looked kind of pedestrian. I'm definitely selling the Iowa State stock. But is Cincinnati good enough? I don't know. I mean, Cincinnati's kind of like an average team. But I'm not feeling Iowa State right now. But you know what? Whatever. I'm going to go with Iowa State. Even though I'm not feeling them, I think they're good enough to beat Cincinnati here. I'm going to say Iowa State wins in a close one, like a 28-24 game. What do you got, Ian?
So the offense still for Iowa State has definitely been surprisingly pretty good for them. They were in a shootout with Kansas, and Kansas kind of won out in that one. But they've been playing way too many close games, and I feel like if it is a close game, Cincinnati's got them right where they want them. Sorsby has had a really under the radar season. I think he's had 16 touchdowns already. But I think it's in Jack Trice Stadium. It's a tough place to win at when the crowd is rocking. I don't see Cincinnati getting the win in that one. I think the run game will complement Iowa State enough. I'll go Cyclones winning. I'll go with the 28-19 win for the Cyclones.
Nice. Okay. Washington State, New Mexico. Only reason I put it on there is because Washington State is ranked and they have an outside shot at getting to the CFP. I don't think they'll get there, but we'll see. They beat Washington and Texas Tech, and then they got beat pretty handedly by Boise State. I think they win this game pretty handedly. I'm going to say Washington State wins like 35 to like 20. What do you got?
Yeah, and New Mexico, they've been giving up almost 400 yards a game. And Washington State, they've been, really running up the score. They had a close one against San Diego State, but they blew out Hawaii, blew out Utah State. And they were in a track meet with Boise State. And that's been their only loss, which is honestly the best loss they could have in that one. I think the Cougars, do the same thing. I don't see New Mexico stopping them. So I'll go Washington State winning a 38-10 win on the Lobos.
Okay, last one. I feel like I'm betraying BYU here, but this is my upset pick. I feel like Kansas has been, trending upwards. They were in a lot of close games up until they beat Iowa State last week, and they really kind of, were the better team throughout that entire game. So I feel like they can get the win here. BYU has been stumbling a bit. They've been in a lot of close games. They needed a miracle against Oklahoma State. They needed a miracle against Utah with a, fourth down holding call, which I did see the replay from up close, and it was clearly holding. The guy grabbed his shoulder pad and pulled him down. So it was clearly the right call, but still they needed that to be able to even continue that drive. So BYU has been kind of, luckily winning these games, but I also like them a ton. Even if they lose this game, I still feel like they have a lot to play for regardless, because I think they still have a really good shot at getting to the Big 12 championship game. It's just going to be a close one. I'm going to say KU wins 34 to 28. What do you got, Ian?
So I definitely am on board with that. The only thing that's going against me for that is that Kansas has not won a road game since the last game of last season. Jeez. And it's been a rough one. And they had a close loss against Kansas State on the road, and they have been playing close games with Arizona State, TCU, all that. With BYU, though, I feel like with Retzlaff and the balanced offense, that's something that's tough for Kansas to combat, and they're going to have to rely on Jaden Daniels' legs to win this one. Jalen Daniels. I feel like with that, BYU can make Kansas's offense one-dimensional, and I think the Cougars get it done. I think they play it closer than they need to, and in that case, Kansas absolutely can pull off the upset. But I think BYU gets it done in the last second. I'll go with a 28-24 win.
Okay, that is the show. You can reach us at haterradio.com for all of our articles, for our socials, for Instagram, Thread, Twitter's, X, TikTok. It is at hater_radio. For Facebook, it is Hater Radio CFB. For YouTube, it is at Hater Radio. For now, Blue Sky social media, I just added it today. It is just type in Hater Radio and it'll come right up in the search. I don't know the specific handle. It's some huge long line. But That's where you can reach us there. Ian, what are your socials?
Yeah, it's at Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter at G_Gator_G.
So that is the show. And I just want to thank you all for subscribing to Hater Radio on YouTube, because we're now over 1,200 subscribers, which means we have had 1,000 subscribers subscribed since the start of the season, which is huge, which is, astronomical amount of growth. I really appreciate all you guys. So like, subscribe, comment, tweet, post, follow, all of it. Help us out, put it in the algorithm, and we're just trying to grow this brand as best we can. And, it's been a blast. And I'll just say this lastly, enjoy these games, and we'll talk to you on Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. All right, take care, y'all.